I'll start. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there are two things that sort of haven't been said. One is, I think new media and the new proliferation of platforms is something that I think is actually a very optimistic, development, and something that will, you know, tear down borders, make others more familiar to each other. Um, I'm discouraged at some level too, because once upon a time, television, I can't speak as much for film or the history of film, but television certainly was a mirror, a much more socially relevant thing. It really did break the color barrier and the race barrier, it had a much more intimate relationship with social change. I don't think that's the case anymore. Television is, and I think movies and some of the great movies as well changed, and I don't think that's the trend we're seeing, and so that's discouraging for me anyway.
Mark, do you want to?
I think it's funny. Howard touched on something, and there's like two different phenomena going on, and I'm thinking about your question. I don't know which direction it's going to go. On one hand, you've got this audience segmentation, which internet is doing.
Right.
You look at it right now, and you go there and you see. And I just going back to what Howard was saying. I remember, I was in college and All in the Family came out, and that show was, everybody watched it. You couldn't find, there was only 3 networks, and this was when it was on 80% of America, whatever. And that broke so many taboos and barriers, race, culture, everything. It addressed a lot of these issues you were talking about. We don't see that anymore, because there is, instead of 3 networks now, there's 300 networks. And then internet, YouTube. And one of the things, I'm just saying the negative part, or not negative, what's discouraging from the one media piece having that kind of effect is that was, now what I'm watching, a lot of people, when they go on the internet, they watch what already, reaffirms their
It's for them.
frequency. It's
Exactly.
for them. They go
Yes.
to the show. If you are a Fox, you watch Fox all the time, and you go on the internet, you watch the whatever. So in that sense, it could be more polarizing. On the other hand, at least in film we've seen, and then every once in a while, I remember a few years ago, I'm sure you guys remember the Inconvenient Truth. And the movie, it was a documentary, and as far as filmmaking concerned, it wasn't the most exciting documentary, but it had such an unbelievable impact. It pretty much ended the debate on global warming. Before that, we all thought that, there's like half of the scientists think it is or not. That pretty much ended it. So it had, even though it wasn't a huge grossing movie, it really had an impact. And I believe still that possibility exists for movies. Do that, and perhaps TV shows, if somehow they cross over, but I think it's going to be hard to see where they come from. I think they will show up, and I'm convinced that they will show up. So you're going to have, on one hand, audiences are getting fragmented and going and looking at what they really already believe. On the other hand, I think there will be, optimistically, something out of left field. And I think all of us would like to be part of that if we could find it or, contribute to it. But some of it I think will just happen accidentally.
Barry, do you feel optimistic?
Well, it's interesting. I'm generally an optimistic person, and I do think in film, if you look at Black America, there certainly has been a big move in casting blacks in film without regard to the role they're playing. So that's widened out, and hopefully that'll transcend into other minority groups or other groups, so that it becomes more real. And I think there's a real effort actually in the film world to try to do that. But I must say that what you said, Mark, and Howard said earlier, is true about the internet. I just read 2 articles. I think there's one in New Yorker by Elizabeth Colbert about the very thing, that the internet the people that tend to I think it was about Sarah Palin and the right-wing America, and how they gravitated to these websites, and they just started to become more insular and more convinced of how of their kind of extreme position. And there is a real danger of that happening, I think. And it's our responsibility to try to counter that through our efforts.
Howard Gordon, Mark Amin, Barry Osborne, thank you so much for giving us your time. Appreciate it.